Now that we have our pins out from doing those shoulder seams, we're going to go ahead and open up the gown, totally open. And the next step is for us to put some binding around. This is the wrist part of the gown, and so we want that to have a nice finish on it. So we're going to take one of our little knit strips that we had, and we will, with the right side of the knit facing the right side of the front and the right side of the back. It looks a little strange because of the mitten, but don't worry about that. All right, so we're going to stitch across. I just prefer doing this on the sewing machine because we're going to have to do the final part of it on the sewing machine anyway. So we're going to stitch our way across. And if you cut your band according to our instructions, you'll have enough to make this a 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the other wrist and line it up underneath my knit. Just doing both at the same time. Manage these little tails too. If you've already cut them off, that's great. I did not. All right, so once I'm across, take it off the machine, trim up those tails, and then we're going to flip and turn and finish that. So this is very simple. We don't even, all we do is turn it this way. We do not need to turn it and then turn it. This is not going to ravel, so there's no need in all that bulk. So I'm going to flip it, and then I'm going to stitch in the stitch. Really just use a relaxed stitch length. I don't know, on a new machine, it might be like number 5, maybe a 6, I don't know, you decide. On an old machine, I'm talking about 8 stitches to the inch, maybe even 6 stitches to the inch, something relaxed. Okay, one done. You know, and you can really have some fun here by picking some great colors that'll pop on the shirt. Maybe here we could have done some hot pink or lime green could have been fun. All right, so I'll cut that off, and then I'm going to cut in between the two. And let's just look at the garment from the outside for a minute. All right, so if I turn it, so the front is facing us, fold that down. This might start to make sense. This is the front, here's the sleeve, and this is how it would look when the baby's wearing it without the mittens. Now if we go to the back and pull that mitten forward, that is how that little mitten's going to work. So just to sort of give you a chance to get oriented on what's happening here with our project. It can look a little crazy until we get far enough along. Okay, so now the next step is going to be for us to turn this out, wrong side out again, flip it over, and we are going to add the neck band that goes all the way around. It's going to go from one side of the kimono front, around the back, to the edge of the other side of the kimono front. And that should be a 26-inch piece of knit. Now, some knits have a little more stretch than others. If there's a really good amount of stretch, you could even try going to something a little bit smaller. And I am going to go do this on the serger, but it's not necessary. I'm just going to because I have a serger. So follow me over there, and let's see how that goes. You could pin, it doesn't hurt. I don't feel like I'm going to need to. So, what I will do though, now that I've got that attached, I marked mine with a pin. I don't recommend cutting it at 26 inches because then you don't have anything to hold on to when you get to the far end, and that can be a little bit challenging. So I just now folded it in half. I found where the half point is, right where my fingernail is. And then I'm going to use that to help me match up to the center of the back. Just to make sure I don't borrow some of the binding that's meant for the other half of the gown. Now don't feel like you have to do this without pins if you're not comfortable managing all of this. Put pins in, but put them way out here. Don't have them in here. When we did our test session, somebody did sew over a pin. So she's currently waiting for a new blade. It happens, don't be embarrassed. Okay, now if you're gonna stretch your band, the best place to do the stretching is in the back because that gown, it's really needing to come up against the baby's neck. So stretched band there will be very good. All right, I'm gonna stop and see how I'm doing. Looking good. I don't have to stretch very much. But you may have noticed that I did do a good bit of stretching across that back of the neck. I will say it is really good to be consistent don't cut off too much because that will change the size of your band when it's finished. So you don't want it to be a ½ inch here and a ¼ inch there. And what I mean by that is if I would have cut in further, like here you saw how I curved in a little bit because I saw I was losing ground. So you can see this section here is a little narrower than this section. Let's bend it up there and see. Look at that. So if I line them up, you can see the white jig. You really want to avoid that if you can. Now, since that happened to me, what I will do is I will have that side go under and the other side over. And nobody will ever know. You can cover up mistakes like that. So the next step then is for us to do an underarm, and we're only going to do one underarm, and then we'll stop and we will put this kind of a treatment, this edging, on the bottom opening. So go ahead and flip your garment right sides together. You see me holding on to those gown bottoms just so I have a little less to manage. All right, now how to pin this. Open it up, and you're going to want to line up the under gown. Notice how far up this comes into the armpit. So that's important. You're going to want to get that pinned really well, and you aren't going to be able to see it. So we're going to put some pins way over here, and then be mindful of them so we don't poke ourselves. But that will help that stay put. All right, and this is pulling in because I've got that ribbing. It's not a big deal, but we do want to manage it. So I'm pushing it away underneath with my fingers. You can't see that. But that way, from this pin to the edge, now it's going to lay straight because I moved that bubble over. I'm not going to do a whole lot of more pinning because I need to bring the other gown over. So now I've done that. I'm going to start at the bottom, line those corners up. Got some strings. Keep an eye on your strings so that you don't sew them so they show on the outside. If they end up on the outside, go ahead and cut them off, trim them up, make them look good. All right. Now I remember I had a pin, but it's way back here, so I'm actually going to be able to leave that where it's at and just pin this here. Working my way up, and now I'm going to skip all the way over to the edge of the sleeve. And this is going to be bulky for a serger, so you are not going to want your cutter to have to do any work right here. So I'm going to trim things up and make sure I can just make my way through, bypass the cutter basically. Pin. Now I want these guys to relax into each other. It can feel a little bulky, but now same thing. I don't know if you can see this in the video. It's wanting to pull in. So I have to do the same. I need to move that bubble down far away from where I'm stitching so I don't get a dart, pleat, or whatever you want to call that. And I've got a little bit of a little bit of excess here. I will probably just stretch that the sweatshirt layer when I come by here, and that'll ease in really good. Nobody will even know. All right, so that is how you pin it up, and we're only, remember I said we're only pinning one side because I need to be able to open this up like so and put my banding across the bottom, and then our very last step will be to stitch the next underarm seam, and we're done. So we are 2 seams from finished. All right, let's go sew this up, and I'll meet you back at the table.